Unless my formula is tampered with, we will soon be in a stronger position than we were before the plague came in from China. When the numbers reach the point that I know they will, there will again be a great unity and a great spirit in our country. People will have that job back that they might have lost. They'll be making even more money than they did before. We have some brilliant people working with me, and we put it together. We did it once, and we're very easily doing it again. We're way ahead of schedule. You'll see that.
On this episode of Just Informed Talk, we're going to take a look at the latest new Q posts, and we have to ask the question that Q wants us to ask, and that is, can we prove it? Can we prove that the mainstream media is working to cover up for this domestic terrorist operation across our country to destabilize our government and normalize violence? Can we prove coordination? Can we prove that this is a deliberate action that is done in part by the political actors who want to affect an outcome using this violence? We're going to talk about that and a whole lot more, so you guys are going to want to stick around and check it out. Hi, and welcome to another episode of Just Informed Talk. You guys know the drill. Thanks to everyone who's hit that subscribe button. If you guys haven't done it yet, just come here real quick, click the big red subscribe button, make sure you hit that bell for notifications, and then select all so you get notified when each one of these videos get posted. We're picking up right where we left off. We left off at Q post 4474, picking up at 4475. And of course, we have major news stories we're going to look at. Plus, we're going to look at a bunch of other information that you guys are going to want to stick around and check out. And don't forget, we do a segment at the end of each one of these episodes called God's Grace is Greater, where we talk about God's grace and how it is truly greater. And today we're going to do a special prayer for spiritual power. So if you want to stick around and get that, I really encourage you guys to do so. Now, let's get right into it. And before we do that, just a quick reminder, this video is brought to you in part by Brave Browser. Download it for free using the link in the description. If you don't know what it is, go use the link in the description to read more about it. But it's an internet browser that's going to block the ads and make your internet experience that much better. So check out the Brave Browser for free. You can download it today. Now, we're going to get into these latest new Q posts, and there's a little bit here. Plus, we're going to cover some news stories. So there's enough information here that it's going to be worth your while to stick around. And we're going to try to get in a segment at the end. I'm trying to work on where we go through my Twitter feed and we look at some of the breaking major news stories of the day. So hopefully we'll get to that segment as well. So the first post here from Q gives us this President Trump 2016 sign saying the silent majority, which was just the tip of the iceberg, right? Now it's obviously a meme meant to show that even though there's only a little bit that shows on the surface, there's so much more beneath, and it's obviously a metaphor for what's happening right now. I mean, if anything, this is a good metaphor for what's happening with these criminal rackets that are going out and committing acts of violence and committing acts of domestic terror in order to intimidate the population and keep us silent. But the more they do that, the more people are waking up to the tactics that they're using. We're going to talk about that a lot today here with this next Q post. So it's just really fitting that Q starts with this because it shows how much bigger our movement is, but how much further it's been pushed underground, not just by big tech and not just by corrupt politicians who, lie and slander and do all types of terrible things, but by, like I said, these extremist groups that have, been activated for this election by the same politicians and corporate elites who want to keep power, want to retain the power that they lost, and they want to subjugate the rest of the United States and its citizens, and moreoverly the world, into this form of enslavement, which is mental, and ultimately it results in people losing their freedom. So that's, I mean, that's just the simple way to put it. But let's read through this next Q post where it kind of gives us a better detailed explanation on how this all has come about and how it's come together, if you will. So it starts off here telling us to look at this older Q post where Q showed us the connection, right, between the anti-fascist action group today, which is basically, as it says here, the paramilitary wing of the Democrat Party, compared to the 1933 Communist Party's paramilitary organization called Antifasciste Action, or however you pronounce it. Now, The point is, if you go here and you look at old playbook verse or old playbook still used today, then versus now, compare and contrast then. So it gives this Guardian article where it talks about how the Associated Press cooperated with the Nazis. And if you read through this article, it tells you that the Associated Press had a deal where they worked with the Nazi Party to allow these journalists to go into the Hitler's Germany and basically take the propaganda that Hitler was producing and then publish it as if it was real, which is comparably today, in my humble opinion, to the relationship that you see with the Western press and China. Now, and I only say that because has anybody studied what's happened with the Uyghur population? Has anybody studied what happened to the Falun Gong practitioners? Has anybody studied what's happening in Hong Kong with this independence movement that is driven by the reluctance of the Chinese Communist Party to follow through on a commitment that it made? But I'll let you guys, read through this if you want. You can get a better idea. As an example here, though, it gives a picture that was put out, and this is talking about Jews in the United States, and it has a picture of the mayor, the New York mayor, Fiorello LaGuardia, obviously, who they named LaGuardia Airport, I would assume after. But it talked about here how they were able to work it together to produce this kind of propaganda, and it was just, a part of doing business back then. So if you have any doubts as to, whether these people have these, moral qualms with what they're doing as far as publishing the fake news, organizing to undermine presidents and countries and to undermine ideals and values and morals, then, you just have to look back into history, I think is what Q's telling us, right? It says, quote, the Associated Press news agency entered a formal cooperation with the Hitler regime in the 1930s, supplying American newspapers with material directly produced and selected by the Nazi propaganda ministry. Archive material unearthed by a German historian has revealed, quote, to that extent, it is fair to say that these pictures played their part in disguising the true character of the war led by the Germans. How did Hitler gain power? What events created population defiance, extremism, the insurrection? And then it gives this BBC.com article talking about Hitler coming into power from 1929 to 1934 and what led up to it, right? It talks about how the collapse of the German economy, and then how that was followed by a large boom in unemployment, which led to populist rise of this fascism, right? Not like what people want to call President Trump and MAGA, the movement that was created to save America, but rather more like the kind of scenario that we're falling into right now. If you have violent extremists who are being led by warlords going through the streets, eventually it could culminate in something like you saw with Hitler, I would say, right? And I think that might be a part of the plan, but that's what Q's telling us, right, to look at. So you want to read through that, you can. There's a lot of information there, but it says, global economic depression, reparations, huge rise in unemployment. Quote, Germans began to lose faith in democracy and looked to extreme parties on both the left, the communists, and the right, the Nazis, for quick and simple solutions. Quote, when people are unemployed, hungry, and desperate, as millions were in Germany between 1930 and 1933, they often turn to extreme political parties offering simple solutions to their problems. Between 1930 and 1933, support for the extreme right-wing Nazis and the extreme left-wing communists soared. So now it's talking about MSDNC, peaceful protests, MSDNC, propaganda campaign, MSDNC, information warfare campaign, MSDNC, POTUS must be removed, push years to now, or years one to now, I should say. Then it gives us this Robbie Starbuck tweet, which talks about this Palmer report tweet, and I saw these on Twitter, and it's disgusting what these people are putting out there. But it says, these disturbing tweets are sadly not a tiny fringe view on the left anymore. He just said it out loud. Many don't want to coexist like their bumper stickers used to say. Many really believe we're less than human and think we belong in re-education camps. That's the vile truth. And if you read through these, it's disgusting. This is from this Palmer report person, obviously a left-wing nut job, saying, it's time we acknowledge that conservatism isn't just some political view. It means you're the very bottom rung of society, dangerous and deranged. Some conservatives are trying to become better people. Great. But people who flaunt their conservatism are psychotic. It then says that people who promote OAN are racist, right? And it also talks about here saying we shouldn't be cold-hearted about this, but having a conservative as a police officer, for instance, isn't much different than having a KKK member as a police officer. It's just not something that a civilized society can ever tolerate. We should rehabilitate any conservatives who are willing to try. We should pay them or pay for them to undergo therapy and retaining so they can understand the world around them. But first, we must get them out of positions of influence because they're infringing on the rights of others. This is insanity. This is regressive as it gets. This is like going back to the Salem witch trials. Let's go back to the opposite. They're just calling for a new kind of slavery. See, you and I, who are conservatives, Christians, who love this country, who remember what it means to be an exceptional nation, who understand how the Constitution works, we need to be rehabilitated in re-education camps. They'll pay us to do it. Oh, great. They'll force us into it by creating a society that fosters extremist violence against people who you politically disagree with. And then they'll give you the alternative to go into a rehabilitation center. I'm sure it'll be just like the re-education camps they have over in China, right? Where they're re-educating the Uyghurs to be more Chinese. And what does that mean? That just means more communist, right? Which is exactly what these people want. They want you to be more liberal. And what does that mean? More socialist, because that's the way that they want this country to go. And it's not going to happen. They're not going to take away our rights. And people like this just should be laughed at because they are so absurd. But it is a prevailing orthodoxy from the left that you see a lot. And Q says, COVID-19 global economic depression, Democrat Party, BLM race push, reparations, COVID-19 huge rise in unemployment, 40 million, insurrection, riots, city takeovers, remove police weekend property, destroy, assaults, murder, released by Democrat governor, mayors back to streets, safe zones, division, hostility, race war, etc. End goal then versus now. Government control, understanding the past helps to understand the present, right? And Q's 100% right. I mean, think about this. We had this pandemic, then you have all these liberal mayors releasing all of these criminals from jail, and then you're surprised when people are running through the streets, burning down businesses, committing random acts of violence and hate crimes, right, against all races and all people because there is lawlessness and they're trying to do it because they want more power. So if you look at what Q is saying, he's basically saying, look at what happened with COVID-19. How did that lead to this global economic depression? What are they trying to do? They're trying to start an internal revolution inside this country because we caught them. We caught them. And we're not just talking about the little puppets that were on the strings inside of our country. We're talking about globally. We caught this global mafia that exists that's involved in a global syndication or syndicate that organizes under the principle of destroying all other nations so that they can be replaced by a singular entity, a global governing system, which they can then use to run an extortion racket through taxation without representation. And it's just to develop a global tyranny. These are the people that already have more wealth than you could ever spend in several lifetimes. They just want more power. Because to them, if they can't buy power with their wealth, then what good is it, right? And at the end of the day, that's what this is all about. So the next post here Q gives us is this Steve Scalise tweet where he talks about this. Just sent letters to the Democrat governors of New York, New Jersey, California, Pennsylvania, and Michigan demanding they explain why they ignored protocols and forced COVID-19 patients into nursing homes. The outcome was devastating. Families who lost loved ones deserve answers. This tragedy was avoidable. And the letter itself is written here. You can see this letter is the one to Governor Cuomo, basically saying that why did you force these nursing homes where you knew the most susceptible people were, right? The elderly, those who were most at risk to have complications or to be severely injured or die from this virus. Why? would you force people who are infected with that disease to be allowed into those facilities? Especially knowing that a lot of those facilities couldn't handle it and weren't properly stocked up and weren't properly prepared to handle an infectious disease and to force it onto them, which led to who could count the deaths of maybe thousands of people that otherwise could have been avoided. That's gross negligence, to the point where if you're looking at this on a singular level, I mean, you could make a case against somebody for gross negligent homicide. This is typical of government. They can make decisions that cost lives and not be held accountable. And this is exactly what they take advantage of. And this is what we have to keep calling out. Steve Scalise doing it here is very important. And Q points out, it's not what you know, but what you can prove. Q, can we prove it? Q, can we prove coordination? Q, can we prove deliberate action to increase death count to justify vote by mail, stay at home, bail out state, kill economy, kill president rallies, increase unemployment, etc. Q. Could you imagine? Will you live in a world where the powers that be would purposefully cause the death of our parents and grandparents to affect the political outcome? It's disgusting. It's not a world I want to live in. And that's why we have to change it. That's why we have to keep calling it out. And that's why we need investigations. And that's why I believe we need to vote for President Trump in the next election. And we need to get really serious about who we're putting in Congress and what they stand for and what they're going to do for us. And now we have a brand new Q post that just popped up here as we're recording. And this is a red pill video. It says red pill after red pill. And you got to watch this. You got to listen to this.
When Donald Trump wants a wall around our southern border, it's considered racist. But domestic terrorists who take over a 6x6 block in Washington is considered patriotic. Joe Biden is allowed to blackmail the president of Ukraine, but when Donald Trump asks about it, that's an impeachable offense. A $5 billion border wall is apparently too expensive, but a $1.5 trillion free healthcare system is apparently achievable. People who never owned slaves have to pay reparations to people who never were slaves. I'm not allowed to cheat to get into college because I'll go to jail, but if I cheat to get into this country, I get free everything. People who never went to college have to pay for kids who made stupid choices and decided to go to college. We're catching and releasing criminals because apparently it's an infringement on their right. I'm not allowed to purchase a firearm, but you're totally allowed to go purchase drugs, alcohol, and get an abortion. Irish and German scientists and engineers have to go through a very serious vetting process before being admitted into the United States, but immigrants from our southern border get to come in whenever they want.
So there you heard it from her. The hypocrisy of the left truly knows no bounds. The next couple posts that Q gives us here is talking about watching Hannity tonight, where President Trump is going to be on, and also checking out this post from President Trump from 2018, where he says, "The Dems have tried every trick in the playbook, call me everything under the sun, but if I'm all of those terrible things, how come I beat them so badly?" 306 to 223. Maybe they're just not very good. The fact is they are going crazy only because they know they can't beat me in 2020. And yes, that seems to be exactly the case. And I'll let that kind of speak for itself. A few other things I wanted to talk about here today were this story talking about James Baker, the FBI lawyer Q told us all about, now working at Twitter. So one of the people who was involved in the coup to overthrow our president now got a great job in Silicon Valley. Great. I'm so happy that people like that, instead of being punished for subverting the Constitution and trying to go after President Trump and launch a coup and helping their corrupt criminal allies in the government to enact this coup against our president, instead of them facing accountability, that they get jobs in Silicon Valley where they get probably 6 or 7 figure salaries. Who knows? But yeah, that's great. It's really positive. Also, Fox News running hit pieces with Will Summers' input about QAnon, which is really, very rich from a news organization who has become one of the exact archetypes for what you would call a fake news that hides behind a few specific anchors who they give just enough freedom to get a message out that represents the majority of the people in this country, right? So they've been on the fake news, bandwagon because they're owned by Disney. They're in bed with the corporation that's behind a lot of this wicked evil that we talk about. And then Will Sommer gets on there to talk about how, to gaslight us and to say QAnon is about one thing, and it's not about equality of law. It's not about justice. It's about going into pizza shops and committing all these crazy acts that singular people do, when you can pull, if we're going to play this game, then you can pull about 10 times worse examples from the leftists and the things that they do. But we don't do that, right? We talk about facts. We talk about truth. We want to have questions answered, and we investigate and look at what is happening, which is exactly what Will Sommer won't do, because all he's good at doing is working as a lapdog for these big corporations to go attack independent journalists and independent news organizations, to report them to his fake news friends who go write hit pieces and then present those hit pieces to Silicon Valley, who then tries to deplatform and demonetize the people who would presumably in this system be competition for Will. So trust me, I've had dealings with this person, and he works at the Daily Beast. The Daily Beast, the mark of the beast, the number 666, all that stuff. Think about it. All right, I'll just leave that for you guys. But that's what we're up against, ladies and gentlemen. You can read through this article. I'll leave a link to it. And then you have this fully leaked book from John Bolton that President Trump was trying to get the DOJ to sue John Bolton to keep him from being able to publish it. Well, now they've just leaked the whole book, right, which contains classified information about conversations between President Trump and his top advisors, including John Bolton. Also, not to mention the fact that the President of the United States has come out and said that the book contains actual outright lies about President Trump. So my question is, now that they've leaked the book, is he going to see what's going to happen? Is this is how these scumbags, these fake news liars, these criminals work, right? So what they do is they write a book that they know they can't release because it contains lies and classified information that shouldn't be out there. Then they leak it to their friends in the fake news, who then report on what's in it, and then they back down and say, oh, well, he never published it, so he backed away. He backed down. Well, you still put the information out, and it's disgusting. I hope these people are all put on trial for the betrayal that they've committed against this country and criminally violating their non-disclosure agreements. This is betrayal. And this is the neocon Inc. being run. These are the Bushes trying to protect us. Think about this, right? We've had these royal families running our country, right, who are going on private jet trips with Jeffrey Epstein down to his island where who knows what kind of satanic pedophile stuff's going on. And these are the people running our country. You have Bush, you have Clinton, you have Obama, and they're all in the same little groups and same little cliques. And here comes President Trump, and all of a sudden you have all of these people going after him on a regular basis. Is it just a coincidence? And is it a coincidence that this is coming from Joe Scarborough, who President Trump called out and said we need to investigate the mysterious death of his intern staffer in his office in Washington, D.C. that nobody ever really looked into because it happened right before 9/11, and it put him as a Republican news person squarely in the pocket of possibly Neocon Inc., the one ran by the same people, right, who are doing this kind of stuff, the Mitt Romneys, the Rhinos, the Never Trumpers. Man, I can tell you right now, I am very disheartened. I am very, very disheartened. But that is not to say that we are defeated. We are merely on the precipice of a new awakening in this country, and I hope it will come sooner than later. So that's where we're going to go ahead and wrap it up. A few more things before we go. Don't forget to watch these videos, share them on your social media, and leave your thoughts, theories, and insights below. I want to hear what you guys have to say about everything. Also, you can find me over here on Twitter at JustInformYou. If you want to participate and get involved and get into the conversation over here, come check me out. I'm also at informed_news on Twitter, and I'm now on Parlor at JustInformedTalk as well. You can also find the content on the backup channel on BitChute at bitchute.com/justinformedtalk. And of course, you can find a lot of other ways you can contact me and get more information and links to different news sites over here on justinformednews.com. So you can also make a contribution if you want to help create content on this channel via Patreon, the crowdfunding website. It's a monthly donation. You set it and forget it. Know you're helping create content on this channel. Thank you to everybody who does that. And if you want to help create this content and keep this channel going, please consider a donation. Also, I have a GoFundMe set up if you want to make a one-time or anonymous donation to the channel. All of it helps keep it going, and I appreciate it very much. Now, before we go, we do a segment at the end of each one of these episodes called God's Grace is Greater, where we talk about God's grace and how it is truly greater. Today, I want to take a second to share a very powerful prayer. And this is a prayer for spiritual power. And this is out of the book of Ephesians chapter 3, verse 14 through 21. And I'm going to read this prayer in closing to give us all strength against such great adversity that faces us in these difficult times. So I'm going to share these words with you, and I hope they touch your heart as they do mine. And if you'll join me, it says, "For this reason, I bow my knees before the Father, from whom every family in heaven and on earth is named. I pray that he may grant you, according to the riches of his glory, to be strengthened with power through his Spirit in the inner man, and that the Messiah may dwell in your hearts through faith. I pray that you, being rooted and firmly established in love, may be able to comprehend with all the saints what is the length and width, height and depth of God's love, and to know the Messiah's love that surpasses knowledge, so you may be filled with all the fullness of God. Now, to him who is able to do above and beyond all that we ask or think, according to the power that works in you, to him be glory in the church and in Christ Jesus to all generations, forever and ever. Amen." And that's my prayer for all of you out there. I want you to have the spiritual strength and power needed to go out into the world and to affect change that's positive. And I want God's courage and God's strength and God's wisdom to come and overflow into your hearts and help you to love others as you would yourself, do unto others as you would yourself, and become a shining example of how to live righteously with integrity and honesty. And that's my message to all of you out there. So that's where I'm going to go ahead and leave it. I want to say thank you for watching this episode. Remember, come here, click the big red subscribe button if you haven't done it already. Also hit it, punch it, tap it, whatever. Hit the like button if you guys like this content and want to see me make more. That's it for me. Thanks for watching Just Informed Talk. My name is Craig. Godspeed, and God bless each and every one of you, Patriots.